Welcome to Daily Finance News, where we bring you the latest updates on the financial markets, stocks, and investments. In today's video, we will be discussing the U.S. inflation data, the Federal Reserve's monetary policy, the debt ceiling, and several economic data and earnings reports that investors will be keeping an eye on this week. We will also take a look at how Asian and European stock markets are performing, and the pre-market movers in the U.S. stock market. So, let's get started. U.S. inflation data and Federal Reserve's monetary policy. Market participants are eagerly waiting for the U.S. inflation data that could influence the Federal Reserve's monetary policy stance. The U.S. CPI data for April will be the main highlight this week, as investors evaluate whether the U.S. Federal Reserve could pause interest rate increases next month. Non-farm payrolls rose by 253,000 jobs last month, and the unemployment rate unexpectedly fell to a 54-year low of 3.4% in April, indicating strong economic growth. However, the U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen warned of a constitutional crisis if Congress does not raise the federal debt limit, and the government could pay its bills only through early June. Investors will be keeping an eye on the June 1st deadline and the Federal Reserve's survey of loan officers to assess the impact of regional banking stress on lending. Economic data and earnings reports. Apart from the U.S. inflation data and the debt ceiling, investors will also be monitoring several economic data and earnings reports. The U.S. core CPI, crude oil inventories, federal budget balance, core PPI, initial jobless claims, export price index, import price index, Michigan consumer expectations, preliminary, and Michigan consumer sentiment, preliminary, will be released this week. Several Fed officials will also be making appearances, including Governor Philip Jefferson, New York Fed President John Williams, Governor Christopher Waller, Governor Michelle Bowman, and St. Louis Fed President James Bullard. First quarter earnings season continues with major companies, including PayPal Holdings Inc., PYPL, Duke Energy, Duck, Airbnb, ABNB, Walt Disney Company, DIS, and Li Auto Inc., LI, expected to report fresh earnings reports. Asian and European stock markets. Asian stock markets settled mixed today, with China's Shanghai Composite Index, SHCOMP, closing up plus 1.81% and Japan's Nikkei 225 Stock Index, NIC, closing down minus 0.71%. China's Shanghai Composite closed higher as sentiment towards Chinese stocks slightly improved following upbeat travel and consumer spending data from the Golden Week holiday. Japan's Nikkei 225 Stock Index closed lower as investor concerns over U.S. banks caused a sell-off in domestic bank stocks. In the European stock market, the Euro Stoxx 50 futures are up plus 0.28% this morning, as investors braced for the release of key U.S. inflation data due later in the week for more cues on the outlook for interest rates. Healthcare and energy stocks are outperforming today, with drugmaker Novo Nordisk A.S., NOVOB, C, DX, climbing more than plus 4%. Meanwhile, Governing Council member Klaus Knott said Sunday that the European Central Bank needs to continue raising interest rates amid too high underlying inflation. In corporate news, shares of PostNL NV, PNL, DX, surged over plus 9% after the company reported better than expected revenue in the first quarter. Pre-market U.S. stock movers. Cryptocurrency-exposed stocks are moving lower in pre-market trading, with the price of Bitcoin down about minus 2%. Marathon Digital, MARA. Meanwhile, investors are also keeping an eye on the cryptocurrency market, as Bitcoin has been experiencing significant volatility in recent weeks. The price of Bitcoin is currently down about 2% in pre-market trading, causing cryptocurrency-exposed stocks such as Marathon Digital, Hut 8 Mining, and Riot Blockchain to move lower as well. In other news, Dropbox Inc. rose about 1% in pre-market trading after Goldman Sachs upgraded the stock to neutral from sell. American Airlines Group also gained over 2% in pre-market trading after JP Morgan upgraded the stock to overweight from neutral. However, Southwest Airlines Company dropped over 1% in pre-market trading after JP Morgan downgraded the stock to neutral from overweight. Workday Inc. slid about 2% in pre-market trading after Stifel downgraded the stock to hold from buy. while Snowflake Inc. climbed more than 2% in pre-market trading after Stifel upgraded the stock to buy from hold. Looking ahead, the U.S. inflation data for April will be the main focus this week, as investors evaluate whether the Federal Reserve could pause interest rate increases next month. The market will also be keeping an eye on the U.S. core CPI, crude oil inventories, federal budget balance, core PPI, initial jobless claims, export price index, import price index, Michigan consumer expectations, preliminary, and Michigan consumer sentiment, preliminary. In addition, several Fed officials will be making appearances in the next few days, including Governor Philip Jefferson, New York Fed President John Williams, Governor Christopher Waller, Governor Michelle Bowman, and St. Louis Fed President James Bullard. First quarter earnings season continues in full force, with investors anticipating fresh reports from major companies, including PayPal Holdings Inc., Duke Energy, Airbnb, Walt Disney Company, and Li Auto Inc. The market will be closely watching these reports for insights into the company's financial performance and guidance for the future. In conclusion, the financial markets are in a state of flux as investors await key economic data and earnings reports. With the U.S. inflation data and several Fed officials' appearances coming up, the market is likely to remain volatile in the coming days. Investors should stay vigilant and keep an eye on the latest news and developments to make informed decisions about their investments. That's it for today's daily finance news update. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again tomorrow.